Harp on Sports, the Bar, Podcast Media, Audio, Radio Network. What do we have in store for you on this edition of the program? On DeSantis' dime, how Shad Khan and the Jacksonville Jaguars now have a blueprint in front of them on what to do with regards to not stadium improvements, but a new stadium in Jacksonville. Don't skimp around with this. That you can keep some of the existing structure, like the scoreboards in the end zone, but blow that thing up, baby. And the Bills gave you a blueprint on how to do it. Ron DeSantis is a Jacksonville guy. On his dime while he's still governor, this needs to be put in motion. So we're going to discuss that. I have my Fantastic Four. Well, no, not basketball, not the Final Four. It's blue-blooded, but not completely blue-blooded. I'm going to look at the top four, the Final Four in the NBA. What's the perfect Eastern and Western Conference Finals? What's the perfect Final Four in basketball? What's the perfect Final Four in college football? What's the perfect ALCS and NLCS? At least in terms of consumption, eyeballs. So we're going to look at that as well. Also, the Buccaneers have come out and announced, along with whom else? The Eagles. Eagles are going to bring back their emerald jerseys, and the Buccaneers are going to come back with their creamsicle jerseys. There's 6 teams in the NFL every single year need to do a throwback. 6 teams that we need to see every single year no matter what. So we're going to look at that as well. Remember, Harp on Sports, the Bar, Podcast Media, Audio, Radio Network, at Harp on Sports Twitter, at Harp on Sports Instagram. Click below. Follow, share, like, subscribe on our platforms. Also, podcast, Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Harp on Sports, as we said, the Facebook page, Harp on Sports, the YouTube channel, and of course, harponsports.com. Okay. The details on this Bills new stadium, and we've talked about this about a month and a half ago. We talked about this. The numbers are finally out. The state of New York's going to kick in $600 million. Erie County, Pennsylvania, $250 million. So it's $850 million that are coming in financially from not the owners. The rest, the extra $600 million, coming from the Pagulas and the NFL. The NFL kicking in $250 million, which you're going to have to pay back. And also $350 million from the owners of the Bills, including any overcosts. And it will run over $1.45 billion, probably going to end up about $1.6 billion when it's all said and done. So the Bills are going to get a state-of-the-art, fantastic new entity. They are, new stadium. New stadium. But the debate right now is there's no roof on it, so what are you doing here? Okay. The blueprint's there for Jacksonville. Now the Jaguars are the only franchise in the NFL that doesn't have a new stadium, or what is it, a $500 million renovation in the last 25 years. Everybody's got one now. Everybody in the NFL has one, except the Jaguars. The Jaguars have done some, remodeling here or there, but not enough. And now they're the only one left. And they're in a tricky situation, right? Because the Bills were on the cusp of the Super Bowl, almost there. You've got the people in Erie County that are cool with it. The state of New York, you've got so much money because you have New York City and such the tax flow that can come into there, in Albany, taking the money from New York City and giving it to Buffalo. And yeah, it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but so what? If you're Duval County, you should be all over this. The people that shouldn't be complaining are the people of Duval. It's kind of funny when you think about it, because the people who are going to throw the biggest fit about this are the people in Jacksonville. We don't want we don't want our taxes raised. Good gracious, gang, you can get away with this. The Erie County is getting away with this for $250 million. The city of Jacksonville in Duval County can get away with this for $250 million. The state of Florida, and again, you got Ron DeSantis as governor. Without Ron DeSantis, this is going to be near impossible to get done. Near impossible. So, he's likely going to win re-election, but you can't roll the dice when it comes to something like that. You just can't. So he's got what? Maybe only 10 months left in office, 9 months. It'd be less than that by the time the new 7 months. Guaranteed 7 months left in office. Guaranteed. If you're Jacksonville, start kicking the tires on this. Kick the tires on this now. Go to Ron DeSantis and say we want the exact same deal that New York had. The state of Florida kicks in $600 million. Duval County, $250 million. The Khan family, $350 million plus overcharges, and then $200 million from the NFL. And then go get it. Then go get it. You can go a little bit bigger. You go a little bit bigger. Get this done. Well, what would you do? Look, there's these scenarios. Don't get caught up in the minutia of this. What you really do, if you really, really are dead serious about this, you don't want to tinker around with it, you build it where the parking lot is now. You face it the other direction and you build it where the parking lot is now. So the new stadium's almost a T. And then you tear down the old one and there you go. Or, got a lot of land in either direction. Start tearing some junk down. You build it on the other side. Yeah, build it over there. Now, get the parking lots. What are we going to do for parking? You're going to park somewhere else for a year. Good gracious. That's what I would do. Now, if you want to keep it in its current spot, there's things you can do. If you want to keep it in its current spot, all right, you got the score. What about the scoreboards? Okay, we're going to nickel and dime around this thing for $100 million. Okay, if you want to really do that, fine. What you do is you tear down the grandstand on the opposing sideline the minute the season ends. Tear that down the minute the season ends. And you can even do one end zone at that point, like an L pattern. You tear all that down, and then, the first month of the upcoming year, the upcoming season, so your target is maybe mid-October. That gives you 10.5 months to do that whole entire thing. 10.5 months, you can get that done. You're not doing the whole stadium, you're just doing a section. And then you get that done one year, then the next year you come over and do the other side. Or if you're smart, what you do, the minute the season ends, you gut that whole thing, and you play the next year in Gainesville. That's what you do. Or half the year in Gainesville and half the year in London while it's being built. Or you can just build a whole new stadium and tear the old one down. That's what I would do. But what are you going to do? We're going to wait till you have a winning record. Yeah, you may have a winning record at the end of the year, but Ron DeSantis may be out of office. Ron DeSantis will do this deal with you. He will. You know he will. You know he will. Do it. Pick up the phone. This is easy. If you're Lenny Curry, this is easy. Easy. Pick up the phone. Put this deal in place. We want the exact same deal that Buffalo got. State of Florida kicks in $600 million. Duval County kicks in $250 million. That gets us to $850 million. Shad Khan, $350 million plus any overcharges. And here we go. NFL, $200 million. Let's get this done. All new stadium. I know they just asked for the $100 million, $120 million. Well, it wasn't quite that much, but after taxes, it's going to be that much. Bond for the new coaches' offices and all that stuff. Whatever, fine. Build it on this side where the War Memorial thing isn't in the middle and the parking lot and the pond. You can build a whole stadium in that area. Build it up right on top of each other. Just get it done. Or you could wait a year and you're not to have that $600 million potential in funding that's going to come from the state. Do it now. Don't wait. You're going to get burned. And again, if you're a Jacksonville resident or the county of Duval, you're crazy not to do this. You just are. And if you're really all that pent up and worked up about it, build a toll road that's extremely convenient to take you back across the St. John's and charge people $5 a ride in each direction. You make your money back. There's ways around it. There are. It's up to you. Good wait. Well, we're going to wait. All right. You're not going to get $600 million. If you have a Democratic governor, 4 years, you can kiss getting $600 million from the state. Goodbye. Not going to happen. Your heartstrings are in Jacksonville now with Ron DeSantis. Up to you. Up to you. Okay. But there's ways around this. There's ways to get this done. Final Four coming up this weekend. And, North Carolina, Duke, Kansas, Villanova. That's pretty blue bloody, right? At least in my lifetime, I can think back where we've had some awesome Final Fours, but UNLV, Duke, is it Kansas and Kentucky? Was that night when Duke finally won the national championship? That's UNLV is not what it was, but boy, that back then that was about as rich as you could get it. I mean, I think we've seen it. Well, it was the year that Kansas beat Memphis, but the Final Four that year was what? Memphis, UCLA, Kansas, and North Carolina. With the exception of Memphis, that's pretty rich. This one is about as rich as you can get. But I was trying to think of the perfect Final Four. The perfect one. Now, look, there's going to be some on the outside peering in when it comes to this thing. The perfect Final Four in basketball is Duke, Kentucky, North Carolina, and UCLA. That's the perfect Final Four. Kansas isn't in there. You're right. Kansas hasn't won as many championships as these teams. I'm trying to balance out championships, time zones, eyeballs. Who are you going to take out of here, huh? You take North Carolina out and put Kansas in? If you want to do that, go ahead. The one that you could, out of Kentucky, UCLA, Kansas, and Duke, the one that you could remove from this equation would be Duke, because I don't know what they are without Mike Krzyzewski. I've seen UCLA win a championship without John Wooden. I've seen North Carolina win championships without Roy Williams. Actually, I've seen coaches before win them without Roy Williams. And I've seen a coach other than Roy Williams get them there. Just happened. Dean Smith. Yeah, I've seen it all. I saw Guthridge take them to the Final Four once. And then you add to the equation, what, Villanova? I've seen two different coaches win at Villanova. The one that I've never seen two different coaches win at's Duke. Kansas, saw Larry Brown win one. Saw Bill Self win their one. So if you're going to remove anyone from the equation, you remove Duke. And Duke's not a blue blood. The perfect Final Four. And now with Krzyzewski gone, I don't know what that means. But the perfect Final Four would be Duke, Kentucky, UCLA, North Carolina. If you want to remove any from the equation, next year you remove Duke and slide Kansas in. On the outside looking in, like that next Final Four would be what? UConn, Villanova, Indiana, Kansas. Michigan State's there too. Yeah, I still kind of... I've gone back and forth on Indiana not being a blue blood. If they got back to the Final Four, it'd be a monster. It would just be monstrous. Look at Villanova. To sit there and say, well, he isn't a blue blood anymore. You're right, they're not. But if they'd get back to the Final Four, remember, this is the perfect Final Four scenario. If you put Indiana in the Final Four, that place would go nuts. Go crazy. It's like Villanova did 7 years ago, when they finally got back there. So there we go. So I was starting to think other sports, the perfect Final Four in other sports, what would it be? So we're going to stick with basketball for a second here. The NBA, the Eastern and Western Conference Finals. The Eastern Conference Finals was easy. It's the Knicks and the Celtics. Even though the Knicks haven't won a title in 50 years now or close to it. The Knicks and the Celtics are easy in the East. That's easy. I thought about the Celtics and the Pistons, but no. There's no the Bulls and the Celtics, but Jordan was the Bulls. It's not the Bulls, it's Jordan. So it's the Knicks and it's the Celtics in the East. The West, a little bit tougher. You know it's the Lakers. Then trying to find somebody other than the Lakers to be the perfect Western Conference Finals. Who is it? It just shows you how bigger really stars are than the teams in some cases. And the truth is, the team that's got the second best pedigree in the Western Conference is the Spurs. It is. I kicked around Golden State, but you move Steph and those guys from the equation, but then you remove Duncan from the equation. The other teams in the West, Portland's had success, but they haven't done anything lately. Who else? Who else in the West would be grabbing your attention? It's tough, isn't it? Very tough. But it's the Lakers, not the Clippers. It's Phoenix. It's not the 70s. So you look at the gap, it's been the Lakers, baby, and not much. And the other teams have had their spurts in there that have challenged them, whether it's the Kings or the Spurs or the Suns. Other teams have come into challenge, but they've disappeared just as quickly as they've entered the chat. Just as quickly. So again, ultimate Eastern and Western Conference Finals. Celtics, Knicks, Eastern Conference. Lakers, Spurs, Western Conference. The NFL, again, the NFC's easy. It's the Packers and the Cowboys. NFC's easy. AFC's a little bit tougher. I think 15 years ago, it was the Steelers and the Raiders. But now I think it's the Steelers and the Patriots. Well, Seth, Patriots have had 3 different quarterbacks take them to Super Bowls. It's pretty impressive, isn't it? Was it Eason in the 80s? Bledsoe in the 90s? Then the Tom Brady conga line. Steelers have had what? 3 different quarterbacks take them to Super Bowls? Bradshaw, O'Donnell, Big Ben. So, again, and the Raiders are the same. Multiple quarterbacks have taken them to the Super Bowl. So, But when I think it's all said and done, I think it's the Patriots and the Steelers now in the NFC, in the AFC, and Cowboys, Packers in the NFC. I don't see that one changing anytime soon. Baseball's perfect Final Four. ALCS, NLCS. Again, NLCS is easy. It's the Dodgers. It's Cardinals. That's easy. The American League, I think 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it was probably the Yankees and the Orioles, or maybe you can even convince me the Yankees and maybe the Tigers, but now it's the Yankees, Red Sox. Baseball is the easiest one. Baseball's easy. Right now, baseball's easy. Red Sox, Yankees. And you couldn't say Red Sox, Yankees 20 years ago because you had the wild card didn't exist, right? Actually, 25 years ago. But now that it exists, Red Sox, Yankees, Dodgers, Cardinals. And the Giants are honorable mention floating around there, but these are the perfect Final Fours. They just are. Now, what about this team? What about this team? You can make cases for all these. I was telling you these are the perfect, the Final Fours on paper. They are. And there's a couple out here. You know, I mentioned Cowboys. I mentioned baseball. I'm going to get to college football in a second. I'm going to sneak hockey in here. Hockey, the divisions and the conferences are changing. They always are changing. So I look at like the East compared to the West now. The East is so much more loaded. Why? Because hockey was a Canadian and Eastern thing. Hockey wasn't a west of the Mississippi thing forever. It just wasn't. It's a little bit harder for hockey. Extremely hard. Now, when the Red Wings were in the West, it made things a little bit easier putting this together. But now that the Red Wings are in the East, it's damn near impossible. So I went through and looked at this. Any scenario that you have in it, you have to have the Leafs and the Canadiens. You have to. You have to have Montreal and you have to have Toronto. After Toronto and Montreal, then what? Well, then it's got to be the Red Wings. It just has to be. So then you're left with the debate after the Canadiens, the Leafs, and the Red Wings. The perfect Final Four in hockey. Who knows if they'll realign the divisions again. You have Pittsburgh. You have Boston. You have the Rangers. You have Edmonton. I mean, you say the Islanders, maybe, but the Islanders wouldn't fit into this equation. Who else would you say? Hockey's tough. Hockey trying to find that fourth one's tough. But the thing is, 4 through 8 could be anybody. The Flyers, the Devils. Devils won what, the Cup 4 times? But when it's all said and done, you have to look at tradition rich, original, you know, the Octopus, the original 6, original 8, however, then they expand and then. If you're doing hockey, it's Canadiens, Leafs, Red Wings, Bruins. It just is. Now they're all this side, right? They're all to the east of Lake Michigan, but that's the way it is. I don't even know who you even pull from the West. I don't. It'd have to be Edmonton, wouldn't it? Calgary. Yes, Phoenix. But the hockey's one that's a little bit trickier just because the movement is constantly changing. And college football's perfect Final Four. This one's a little bit tricky as well. Any combination that you have has to have Notre Dame and Alabama. It just does. Any combination you have, it's got to have Notre Dame and Alabama. They're the big draw. Other than Notre Dame and Alabama, what would I do? I do Notre Dame, Alabama, Texas, and Oklahoma would be my perfect Final Four for college football. But that's the one that has the most moving of pieces. You could take, if you sat there and said, okay, I think the one that has to be included in any one that you do is Alabama. Then it's Notre Dame, and then the debates Texas, Oklahoma. To me, it was Notre Dame, Texas, or it's Alabama, Texas, Notre Dame, and then that fourth one is a rotation. Do you want to do Ohio State? Do you want to do Oklahoma? Do you want to do Southern Cal? Do you want to put them in there? Do you want to put Michigan in there? Who do you want to put in there as that other college football team? Going to be part of that rotation. Penn State? Who's that other team in there? Is there really anybody out of the SEC that would fit that mold? Not really. Georgia, but, you know, big gaps. Miami. New to the party the last 40 years, but still relevant. So, again, if you're going to put this thing together, perfect Final Four for college football would be Alabama, Texas, Notre Dame, and I have Oklahoma. But if you said, Seth, it's got to be Ohio State, I'm okay. If you came in and said, Seth, no. You have Ohio State there. You have Oklahoma. It's neither of those teams. It's Michigan. Oh, okay. Okay, you talked me into that, but I've seen Ohio State. What's Ohio State won? 5, 6 national championships the last 45 years? Michigan's won 1. Notre Dame's only won one the last 35. I get it. But Notre Dame's won 5 in the time that Michigan's won 1. So I see a little bit screwier. All right, what to wrap with this? Throwback unis. I see, hear, feel. No, the Buccaneers and the Eagles are going to bring back their 80s uniforms. The creamsicle for the Bucs and that emerald green, Eagles look. So I went through and I was thinking, now one of them we don't hardly ever get to see anymore because the team moved. But throwback uniforms we have to have every year. I like the Eagles Emerald one, but it doesn't have to have it every year. But if you want to put it on the list, that's fine. The Buccaneers, that has to be in one game every single year. Has to be. Now, the Packers old ones are cool. They are. But it's almost like the new ones are more iconic than the old ones. Even though the new ones are old. The thing about tradition-rich teams, uniforms don't change very much. I mean, the Bears really haven't changed theirs a lot, have they? Not really. Cowboys have changed theirs a little, but not a lot. So I went through and looked at this. The Bucs. And to me, every year, the Bucs, we got to see that creamsicle one every year. The one that also we have to see every year now, I want to see every year is the Patriots. What do they call it? Center Pete or Snapping Pete or whatever they call him. Pete the center. We've got to have that. I call him Patriot Pete. But the old school Patriots, we got to have that every year. We have to have the Bucs creamsicle every year. If you want to do the Eagles Emerald every year, that's fine. Other ones I want to see the Denver Broncos, John Elway 80s. It's funny because what I grew up with as a kid are now throwbacks. It's just kind of weird. And what were throwbacks when I was a teenager in high school were what my dad remembered as a kid. It's just kind of funny because I hear people like, oh man, you mean those retro uniforms? I'm like, retro? It's like 1999. It's funny because remember when the NBA got into this teal where the Pistons were teal? Everybody was teal. The Grizzlies were teal. Everybody had teal in it. Because the Marlins springboarded that. So now it's like, oh, we're going to bring back those throwback Raptor jerseys. The throwback, I guess they are 25 years old. And I guess in the 1994 NFL season, when you're trotting out NFL uniforms from the late 60s, those were 25 years old as well. I guess so. Yeah, why not? But there's certain ones in here that I love. Again, the Patriots we need to see every year. You see the Buccaneers every year. Okay with the Eagles every year. Okay. Other ones that I wrote down that I'd like to see every year, I mentioned the Denver Broncos. And the old Detroit Lion ones. I think the old Detroit Lion ones, where they call them the silver bullets, ones that Barry Sanders used to wear. Good gracious, those are fantastic. Want to see those every single year. Now the NFL really got quirky with it there for a while, and look, it's a profit thing. I get it's a money thing, but there's certain throwbacks that are just separate from the rest, and those are it. Those are special. The one that we don't get to see that I have an asterisk here that's very honorable mention, but it doesn't fit. It just doesn't because they never played for them. It's weird, but it needs to happen. And those are Houston Oilers uniforms. And I know the Titans have the rights to them, but they need to let the city of Houston wear. Let the Texans wear those. No. All right, fine, whatever. But those are fantastic. Think of Warren Moon. They need to bring those Oilers uniforms back. Those are fantastic. Again, they're great. Texans should, I don't know how much money it would cost, but I know the Texans, it's a brand, and NFLs don't like to change brand. It's not like the Bobcats and then becoming the Hornets and the Pelicans. I get it. How cool would it be to have the Houston Oilers back? Harp on Sports, the Bar Podcast Media Radio Network. Follow, share, like, subscribe at Harp on Sports Twitter, at Harp on Sports Instagram. Harp on Sports available for you. The Bar, Spotify, Buzzsprout, Apple Podcasts. Also, Harp on Sports Facebook page, Harp on Sports YouTube channel, and harponsports.com. There you go. Later in the week, I'm going to have my Final Four predictions. I love happy endings, but they're not realistic. Remember, stay clean, stay focused, stay strong. Frankenstein. Have fun with your friends.